today. Can you see the presentation? Just confirm that so I can. Okay. So what I'm going to discuss here, Dr. Salah has pointed out a few things related to the matrix and the program learning outcomes, but I still believe that we need to have a longer discussion concerning that, because actually the program specification is a huge step, and it is prior to what we're doing now. In other words, we have to prepare our program specification before we can go to step 2, which is preparing or finalizing our course specification. But I will just discuss things that are related to the course specification. First of all, in this course, in this workshop, we're going to discuss a few things, just introductory things related to what is a course specification file, why do we have to prepare and revise the course specification regularly? And when I say regularly, I mean, excuse me, each semester. It's not a choice, we have to do that. And who is responsible for preparing the course specification? And what are the major components of a course specification? I'm sure you're familiar with specifically this thing, because all of us have written our course specification at least once. But it's good to have an overall idea about the different components and why these components exist in the first place. We're also going to have a very quick, I don't promise you it's going to be an in-depth, it's actually a step-by-step, short and quick guide to fill each component of the course specification. First of all, what is a course specification? It is a document prepared for setting the plans for each course in a given program. So there is no program without, I mean, of course, an educational program, a university program without courses. So each course must have a course specification file. And these course specifications, they actually state the clear guidelines to the course instructors, which is us, of course, about the course objectives, learning outcomes, the course content. The course content, we mean the topics to be covered in order to, of course, achieve the course learning outcomes. So it is not a file that is, as maybe most of us describe it, as a headache, that we have to finish it and submit it to the quality unit. It's actually a roadmap that each instructor needs, because once you have prepared your course specification properly on a solid basis, trust me, it's going to be your map, your roadmap. You will return to that file every time you want to design an assessment tool. If you wanted to prepare a quiz, for example, you have to go back to your learning outcomes and map the questions to achieve these learning outcomes. So it is not something that to be taken lightly. It is big, it is important. It is a headache sometimes, but it's a headache that you have to deal with, not to ignore or not to do carelessly. Because once you reach to the point that you are going to prepare your course report, which is mandatory again, if you haven't prepared your course specification file properly, following the guidelines provided by the NCAAA, you will be in trouble, okay? So the course, the purpose of the course specification is to exhibit the details of planning, for the course you are teaching. Course learning outcomes, teaching strategies, and teaching methods are to be in alignment with, of course, the program learning outcomes. Okay, so a course specification provides the following, just to summarize what we have said. Clear guidelines on the course objectives and its learning outcomes, course content to be covered to achieve the course learning outcomes. In other words, what you're going to teach your students each week in each meeting. Also, course contributions to the overall program. Of course, the course you are teaching has been chosen to this specific program, and we're speaking now about English language program, because it somehow contributes to one of the major skills, knowledge, values, etc., that a student, a graduate of English language, needs to have. Now, the big question, and it is, by the way, debatable. This is what I'm speaking about is the ideal situation. It might be applied in some departments. It may not, but this is the ideal situation. The preparation of the course specification of a given course is the course coordinator's responsibility. Now, let's say that A, whoever A is, teaches this semester, teaches 5 courses. It is not A's responsibility to prepare 5 course specifications. It is the responsibility of the course coordinator. Why? Each semester, each faculty member is assigned one of the courses he or she is teaching to be its coordinator. Ideally, the course coordinator is an expert who has been teaching in the department for at least 5 years. Now, that's why, because course coordinators are supposedly experts with enough expertise, with good knowledge, who have been teaching this course. It's not acceptable that A is the course coordinator, or that he prepares a course specification for a course that he teaches for the first time. In terms, of course, of quality requirements, this is not acceptable. So you can see that we are going backwards. We are going to the step before. When assigning the courses to the faculty members, they should. That's why we say instructors should teach the courses that they are experts in, that they are specialized in, or the courses that they have already taught at least once, because they will be responsible for preparing the course specification file. But the course coordinator is responsible for preparing only one course and passing it to the other colleagues teaching the same course for other sections. Now, A is the course coordinator. B, C, and D are instructors, faculty members in the same institute. Sometimes this happens on the level of different departments. Sometimes in our university, we have different English departments, but for now, it's done on the single department level. So if there are more than one section, and let's say 3 sections, and each section is given by a different instructor, and there is only one course coordinator, he should prepare the course specification and meet with the other 2 instructors to finalize the final version to be submitted to the department council. So the course coordinator is responsible for preparing only one course specification and passing it to the other colleagues teaching the same course. Then what happens? Once the course specification is approved by all the instructors, because you will see, and of course you know, you have already seen that course specification includes teaching details, the evaluation methods, for example, the teaching strategies, the timing of the different evaluation tools like quizzes, if there are presentations, if there are oral presentations, if there are research papers. So they should be all on the same page before they submit the course specification. So once all the different instructors teaching one course have agreed on one copy, one version, it is then passed to quality unit in the department to double check and prepare it, of course, for department council approval. Now, this is a suggested course specification preparation plan. In the first week of the semester, or for now the trimester, the course coordinator will prepare the course specification, depending on his prior knowledge, his expertise in teaching this course. In the second week, he should meet with all course instructors, whether virtually or physically. It depends on how meetings are held. And in the second week, they should have finalized the course specification and agreed on one version. Then in the third week, it should be finalized and passed to the quality unit to be prepared for department council approval. Now, before we go to the course specification components, I would like to draw your attention to one major mistake that some of our colleagues are still having. There was an old version of the course specification, which was T6. It's on the right. This was updated in 2020. So if you see this green thing, green and gold, just skip it. You need to fill the one to the left, which is T4, not T6. This is the first thing to begin with. Now, I just want to first share another file prior to this one. Okay, what is the blank? Yes, can you see the screen now? Please confirm. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, so the course specification file is a file that consists of, six components, 6 sections actually. Of course, this is the first page, and it has what we call the course ID, which contains general information. Then it has 6 sections. The first one has to do with the course identification, and there is a subsection which is the mode of instruction. Section B is about course objectives and learning outcomes, and this is, I guess, the most problematic section that we struggle with, simply because it is the only part, not the only part, but the most significant part that needs regular update. And under this section, we have course description, course main objective, not objectives, and we will come to this point, course learning outcomes. Then section C is course content, which simply points out the major topics to be covered. Section D has to do with teaching and assessment, and this is also one of the most important parts that you should take a good examination in while you fill in the course specification, and you should take as much time as you can, because it is the map that you are going to go back to whenever you plan a test or a quiz for your student. In the teaching and assessment section, you have alignment of course learning outcomes with teaching strategies and assessment methods. And I guess now you know why it's so important. And the second subsection is assessment tasks for students. Section E has to do with student academic counseling and support. F has to do with learning resources and facilities. And this also includes 2 subsections, the learning resources and facilities required. And the last 2 sections is about the evaluation and the approval, the quality evaluation and approval. And we will come to each section and discuss it in detail. Now we'll go back to where is it? Yeah, my presentation. So, as I told you, in the very first page, you have the course title, the course code, the program, the program in which this course is taught, the department, college, institution, and this is something that is taken directly from the program specification, of course. So this is an example, and I would like to draw your attention to the point that all the examples here I use are from the course I'm teaching this semester, which is English phonology, and which is also the course I'm coordinating with Dr. Abdurrahman al-Jammaz. So the course title the course code, the program, etc., is to be taken directly from the program specification. Now we come to the course identification. And this is important because I noticed that most of my colleagues actually, they usually skip number 1, credit hours. They forget it. I don't know, maybe because it's tiny and it's squeezed in the corner, but it's mixed. It's always skipped. But you should pay attention to the idea that each gap should be filled. If there is nothing to be said, if it doesn't apply, you should use the abbreviation NA, not applicable, but don't leave any blank areas, okay? Because it will imply that you have missed this this section. So the course credit, the credit hours, we mean how many hours? Simply 3, 4. In our department, we have credit hours. We don't have contact hours, actual hours, or learning hours. So you usually stick to the, even with the trimester system, they are still the same. It differs in something that is not related to the course specification. So the credit hours, we mean how many hours this course has, weekly, of course. The course type, you are going to decide whether this course you are teaching is a university, is taught on the level of university, or level of the college or department or others. B, you are going to decide if, or you're going to choose if it is required or elective. As far as I know, in our department, all courses are required. Number 3, level / year at which the course is offered. So you are going to decide, you are going to write the level / year. Okay. Number 4, you are going to mention the prerequisites for this course, if any, and the co-requisites for this course, again, if any. Now, the $1 million question here, where can I get this information? It is there in the program specification in section 2, program study plan. You will find all these information. You just are going to copy and paste them as they are. And basically, so many parts in the course specification are immediately, directly copied and pasted from the program specification. So you are just going to go back. That's why I said a minute ago that preparing and finalizing the program specification is a huge step, and it is prior to doing any other file that is related to quality. Now, this is an example. تفضل. So I've been talking to myself. What do you mean, Dr. Salah? But you can hear me. Let me check. To be honest, I don't like Google Meet, but so Dr. Salah, nothing at all shows on the screen. Okay, what about now? Okay. Right. Then I'll go back just a few steps to, yeah. So I said that I was saying that this section is filled by directly copying and pasting information from the program specification. And the program specification, which is a file almost similar to the course specification, but it's on a larger level. It's in the level of the program itself. It includes all the information that you need as an instructor in the department to know about the courses you are teaching. In section 2 of program specification, there is the program study plan, and each level is detailed in terms of the courses that are taught in this level, the course code, the course title, the whether it is required or elective, the prerequisite, the co-requisite if there is any, credit hours, etc. So you are just going to open these two files side by side, and you're going to copy from the program specification into your course specification. So this is, again, an example of my course, the credit hours. So this is on the level of a department. It's not the college, it's not the university. It is a course that is introduced only in English department. It is required and level 6, etc., the prerequisite. If there is no co-requisite, you just write NA, which means not applicable. And we go to the next section, which is the mode of instruction. Now you're going to write the contact hours and percentage for different mode of instructions. And again, the hours you are going to mention here are adopted in the course aligned with the course description and the teaching strategies, such as, for example, traditional classrooms, blended learning, e-learning, which is electronic learning, distance learning, etc. So you are going to decide, or you're going to show how you are going to conduct your course. Is it going to be depending on lecturing, traditional lecturing, which is traditional classrooms, or blended, which means that you are mixing between, and we will discuss now in a minute, each one separately, in case you are actually using one mode of instruction, but you don't know that it belongs to one of these 4 types. So as an example, for example, the course I'm teaching this semester is only 30% e-learning, because students are supposed to listen to YouTube excerpts, and they are supposed to infer some phonological features of native speakers or differentiate between different accents. But it is only a small portion. It's in a shape of activities. But 70% of the course is delivered through traditional classroom. So the mode of instruction should detail how the course will be delivered or conducted. Now let's take each one in detail. Now, what we mean by traditional, this is an explanation of the previous section. Traditional learning is actually lecture-based, and the teacher is the focal point of the class. While blended learning combines formal classroom teaching, which is face-to-face instruction, with different methodologies and technologies which should support and allow the synchronous mode of learning. So it consists of both traditional and electronic or digital learning. E-learning has to do with depending on electronic material, online activities, for example. But when you write e-learning in your mode of instruction, it means that 100% of the classes or of the hours are delivered online. Distance learning, again, is a formalized teaching system specifically designed to be carried out remotely. It's exactly similar to what we had during the COVID-19 pandemic. Other mode of instruction, for example, experiential learning, studio learning, service learning, and I think most of these, they don't apply because they usually associate with specialties like medicine, architecture, etc. Studio learning, for example, or service learning has to do with social sciences, for example, community service, etc. So basically, the first 4 mode of instructions are the ones that apply to our department. Now we come to the contact hours. Again, you're going to summarize what you have said in the previous table. They are sometimes somehow similar, but for example, now when the contact hours in the shape of lecture or lab or tutorial, or it could be another one. Now, according to my course, as I told you, 70% takes the shape of traditional classrooms or traditional lecturing. That's why I mentioned here, I clarified that 22 contact hours are delivered as lectures. Now, what about the 30%? It is the shape of e-learning, okay? It's not distance learning, it's e-learning, and there's a difference. Okay, so it is e-learning. E-learning can be conducted inside classrooms. It doesn't have to be remotely. Okay, so how is that done? Using what is called interactive online learning simulation. So this is the activity, the type of activity that I use to deliver the mode of instruction, which is e-learning. I hope this is clear. If there is any question, you can stop me at any time. So now these two parts are brought together now. These are what we discussed just a minute ago. So you have number 6 and number 7. The first one is the mode of instruction. But number 7 details how this mode of instruction is delivered, is applied. Okay, so again, I have 33 hours for the whole trimester. And these are divided into 22 plus 11. The 22 are delivered as lecturing. So I'm giving the students the theoretical part, the explanation, lecturing, discussion, okay? But for the e-learning, which is stated here in number 6, mode of instruction, how is it delivered? By using an activity which is interactive online learning simulation. And be careful, because anything you mention here, it should be mapped and reflected downwards when you come to activities and teaching strategies. One more thing to mention here, that the total number of contact hours definitely should be always the same. So if the contact hours in number 6 are 40, they shouldn't be any less in 7. Okay, then we go to section B, which has to do with course objectives and learning outcomes. Now, when it comes to course objectives, we have 2 subsections. The first one is the course description, and the second one is the course main objective. And the first section, which is the course objectives, you are going to, the course description, you are going to write the course description as stated, and of course you will find it in the program specification, okay, the course objective. Now, when we come, the course description. When we come to number 2, which is course main objective, now one of the things that is sometimes confusing, and actually it was confusing to me, is listing all the objectives, but this is not what is supposed to be written here. You should write one main objective. Okay, so it should be one long statement, not a list of all the objectives. So you're going to mention the course main objective as stated in the university website or bulletin or whatever. And it describes what a faculty member will cover in a course, generally, of course, because you will detail that when you come to the topics to be covered or the course content. An example for the course description: the course enables students to define and discuss the main concepts in phonetics and phonology. It also allows, etc. Of course, definitely you will have a different course description, and of course you will go back to the program specification. And you will find the program specification description of the whole program. You should extract what is related to your course. Now, the course objective, as you can see, it's a very long and detailed statement, but it is a single statement because what is required here is main objective. So provide students, the objective of this course is to provide students with basic knowledge and skills to pronounce English utterances fluently. Because if you are teaching phonetics, you will not say English utterances, you will say English sounds. Phonology has to do with utterances. So the choice of words should be very specific and technical when you describe, when you mention your course main objective. English utterances fluently according to received pronunciation and to be familiar with segmental and suprasegmental features of English phonology. So this is an example of a well-written course main objective. Now we come to the headache, which is the course learning outcomes. And here, I highly advise you to prepare 3 things. This is, of course, an ideal situation. I don't know what situation we have here. You need to prepare your learning outcomes, the latest course report, and your program learning outcomes. Okay, and they should be updated, they should be detailed, and they should be, I will not say well written, they should be perfectly written. The last thing you need is the program learning outcome mapping matrix. Okay, now, now there is a question that you might ask now. If I'm going to have new plans next year, maybe, who knows, maybe the year after, but say that next year we're going to have new plans. Why do I need to learn how to prepare course specification? Because it is something that is updated and added to every semester. The quality, the Deanship of Quality expects you to update your course specification. Of course, in tiny details. If the course specification with the same assessment tools, with the same instruction mode, if you are using the same instruction mode for 3 or 4 years, there is something wrong with teaching this course. So it should be updated, and you will not be able to update your course specification if you are only copying the same course specification every semester. And this is what has been done before, and this is not correct. This is not how we as educators, as academics, as PhD holders who are responsible for making education better each semester, this is not the way we should work. So the first thing you are going to do before you prepare your course specification for this semester, especially if you have been teaching the same course, the previous course, is you are going to use the course report. You will see points of weakness. You will see the topics that hadn't been covered. You will see the remarks that have been written by the course instructor in the report, and you will use them to improve the course specification for the coming semester. So you need, when you prepare your course specification, you will need these 3 documents definitely. Now, for now, what you need definitely is the program learning outcomes and the matrix. Let's leave the report for, let's say, next year, or when we start our new plans. Now, what is, of course, this is very tiny. I'm sorry if this is troublesome to you, but this is actually a screenshot of the program learning outcomes. I changed the color just for the sake of clarification. So the first part has to do with knowledge and understanding. The second part has to do with skills, and the third part has to do with values. These are the learning outcomes. These I'm speaking about the table on the left. Now on the right, you have the program learning, learning outcomes mapping matrix. These 2 tables are taken directly from the program specification. Why do I need them? Simply because these are the source. These 2 documents are my source to revise my course learning outcomes, because course learning outcomes are directly taken from the program learning outcomes. Okay, now let's take each one in detail. But first, you should know before. Now we'll talk about each one. I will talk about each one individually. But before we reach to that point, you need to know a few things, a few important things about your CLOs, your course learning outcomes. They should be concise and clear, using language that is easy to understand. Avoid sophisticated words. You can use them in your research papers, but not in your CLOs. Be realistic, considering the student's prior knowledge and the time frame for the module or program. That's why you need the course report for this course. for the previous semester, because you have to be realistic. And you will find, if you look at the course report, it will tell you whether the objectives or the learning outcomes were achievable or not. So you have the freedom as an expert to exclude one of the learning outcomes or replace it with something more realistic. Of course, without changing the whole course specification. Deep and extreme changes are not acceptable because these are done on a large level. But you have to be realistic. And maybe you have noticed this semester, I noticed that when I worked with my colleagues in the mail section, that whenever we discuss something, we agree that some learning outcomes are non-realistic. They are just unreal. The level of our students' proficiency will not help us allow this objective. So we excluded some objectives without sabotaging the whole process, without affecting the learning journey itself. You also need to align the learning outcomes with SAQF level. Of course, this is on a national level, but I think this has to do more with program learning outcomes, not course learning outcomes. They should be student-centered rather than faculty-centered. Again, when you change a textbook, you should change it because it is suitable for your students, not because it's easier for you. That's what we mean when you phrase the course learning outcomes. They should revolve around students and students' excellent learning journey, not what is easy for you. They should start with active verb, and this is very important. Don't use words like realizing, understanding. Okay, they should always be action verbs in the infinitive form. Recognizing an appropriate level of achievement, focus on knowledge and skills that are central to the course topic and or discipline, clarify the content and educational objectives, be observable. I will provide you with a copy of something like a booklet I'm working on now to give you guidelines, because I'm not sure whether this meeting is recordable. So the booklet will include these guidelines to help you as a checklist. And there is also a checklist to check whether your CLOs are well written or not. So they need to be specific, using one verb per sentence. So each learning outcome should have only one action verb, not so and such. Okay, so you should stick to one verb. If there are more than one objectives, do not combine them in one objective or outcome. Just separate and go and generate a new learning outcome. Now, how can we use the appropriate action verbs? Of course, these parts related to the learning outcomes are built on Bloom's taxonomy, which is, I think, known to most of us, if not all, which scales the different types of knowledge, skills, values from the more specific to the general, from the specific to the general, from the those parts or those skills that require sophisticated skills to the more practical ones. So if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, we have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And if you look at this figure, the objectives that are the learning outcomes that fulfill knowledge and understanding are related to understand and remember verbs. So remember, for example, and remember, you will find verbs like define, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, state. So these are the verbs that you can use when you phrase your learning outcomes. Again, under knowledge and understanding, you have classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify. And by the way, this is only an example. If you search for Bloom's taxonomy, you will have a wider range of verbs that you can use in your learning outcomes, but this is an example. This is just an example. And there is also another table that I will show you in a minute, which includes a larger variety of verbs that can be used when you phrase your learning outcomes. Starting from apply, the green one, now you are in the area of skills. So execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate a certain type of knowledge, not an attitude, because demonstrating an attitude will go to the values, actually, not the skills. Execute, differentiate, organize, relate, compare, contrast. So these are all skills. Okay, so you can, if your students can compare and contrast two concepts. Now these are skills. These are not under knowledge and understanding. Another example or another guide to help you phrase your learning outcomes is in the table shown. I will not go through them by detail. You can go to them back in the booklet when I send it to you, inshallah, as soon as possible. Now, this is the part in your course specification in which you are going to provide your learning outcomes. Now, what we care about here is the column to the right, aligned PLOs. So it is not enough. It is not enough to phrase your learning outcomes properly and use the correct verbs. They should be related to the program learning outcomes. They should be extracted and generated from the program learning outcomes. Okay, otherwise you are separated from the objective of the whole program. So your CLOs table is divided into three parts: knowledge and understanding, skills and values. And of course, this mirrors Bloom's taxonomy that we have discussed just a minute ago. Now, this is an example of how of course, I did not phrase the whole learning outcomes. I revised what has been provided to me by the department. I found a couple of mistakes. I revised them and I compared them to other course specifications in other universities of the same course. And this is enough for now, because we need to reach the point of long experience and studying quality issues, quality guidelines more thoroughly, so that we can come up with completely new from scratch. We can come up with CLOs from scratch. So please don't be hard on yourself. If you find a course specification and you feel that you're able to read it, revise it, criticize it, and examine it critically, and just modify it, that's fine. That's more than fine. That's excellent job. So be proud of yourself if you have just revised something and updated it and made it better. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is that here, for example, you find knowledge and understanding. This is the form as it is provided from the NCAAA. CLO, knowledge and understanding, skills, values. You need to add, I'm not sure if this is, if you can see this. Yeah. You need to add this sentence just below the title, knowledge and understanding. Upon successful completion of the course, students will be able to 1.1 describe. Now, since you have used here able to, the verb that comes immediately should be the infinitive form, and it should be action verb. Describe phonetic and phonological classification of speech sounds, describe syllable structure and suprasegmental elements, state the formulation of phonological rules such as elision, assimilation, and insertion. Now, look at this column on the right. Here, you should relate, you should map, align your, you should align your objective 1.1 to the, let me say, the father objective, which is in the program specification. Yeah, you will find it here, for example, knowledge and understanding, K1 here, demonstrate, which is linked to 1.1, demonstrate profound knowledge and understanding of facts, concepts, principles, and theories of English linguistics, literature, and translation. So if you look at these two objectives, if you look at these two learning outcomes, yeah, if you look at these two learning outcomes, you will notice that the 1.1 is actually generated from K1. And this also should be stated in the program learning outcomes. If you go to the matrix, that's why I told you, you need to have it side by side with your course specification. If you go to the matrix, you will find that your course, and in this case, we have course ANG 422, that there is a K1, K4, P1, S1, S3, S5, and V2. So the overall learning outcomes should be mapped exactly the same as the program learning outcomes. So I have here K1 and K4 in my knowledge and understanding CLOs. I don't have here K2. I don't have here K3. Okay. So if you look at this one, here we have in K1, one of the objectives, one of the CLOs, and in K4. So all the objectives here, all the learning outcomes should be exactly the same. Now you can have K1, K1, K4, K4 again. You can have more than one CLO aligned with the PLOs, okay? But be careful, not more than two. Why? Because it will be very hard for you to design your evaluation tools. The more you break down the PLO, the more objectives or CLOs you have from one PLO, the more difficult for you and for students to measure the achievement, to measure whether it is achieved or not. So maximum only you can generate two CLOs from one PLO, okay? So in this course that you're watching now here on the screen, sorry, you can have K1 once or twice, but you cannot have K2. You cannot have K3 here, of course, in the knowledge, okay? You cannot have K5. Why? Simply because the program learning outcome dictates you how to align your learning, your CLOs. Now, in ideal situation, the program learning, the program specification will provide you with also the course specifications. But since we are working on modified versions, and that have been modified over the years, over more than 10 years, improperly, we are sometimes facing contradictions. We are facing something unrealistic, something that is ununderstandable, and we have to put things back in their place. Another thing that sometimes when you are writing your course specifications, you will find that the program specification or the program learning outcomes, they need to change, okay? Of course, here, demonstrate profound knowledge. These are the program learning outcomes generally. But when we come to phonology, we'll find that phonology is related to some of the PLOs, not all of them, okay? For example, let's look at K3. Why it's not here? Because it says recognize and or describe strategies of language skills required for communication. Now, phonology is a theoretical part of linguistic information or linguistic knowledge, Okay, so it has nothing to do with strategies of communication. So it is not logical, it's not acceptable to include one of the, or to map or generate one of the CLOs from this PLO. What about K1? K1 states that upon successful completion of program, here, course, okay? So here, this is on the level of the program. Upon successful completion of the program, students will be able to demonstrate profound knowledge and understanding of facts, concepts, principles, and theories of English linguistics. I will stop here because this is about literature and translation, but I will stop here. So theories, concepts, facts, principles are actually the major interests of phonology. That's why you will find that two of my CLOs are derived directly from K1. Okay. Now, what about K2? Exhibit extensive knowledge and profound understanding of grammatical structure, literary texts, vocabulary items, and idiomatic expression. Definitely, this does not relate to phonology. 3, we are done with that. Now, what about number 4? Recognize the main principles of the major areas of theoretical linguistics. Now, this applies to phonology. K5, recognize the main principles of the major areas of applied linguistics. Again, this does not apply because phonology has to do with the theoretical background of language. You see? So this is how you generate your CLOs. You should read the program learning outcomes carefully and relate it to the course you are teaching. Don't just choose whatever PLO is there because you want to fill in the gaps. You should fill properly. Okay, so this, sorry for these, I'm a messy person. Anyways, yes. So if you look at these 3 tables, the first one is taken from the program learning outcomes. The second one has to do with the program learning outcomes mapping metrics, and this is in your course specification. So you cannot prepare your course specification without going back to the program specification. It is the source from which you generate 90% of your course specification. The other 10% has to do with actual application of your teaching as an instructor. Again, the same thing applies here, but now we are discussing skills. In skills, we have S1, we have S3, and we have S5. I don't want to hold you for too long, or maybe, I don't know if I have to go through each component, but let's just, because they have only one value, let's discuss it. Now, again, remember that we're speaking about phonology. So when you prepare your own course specification, you always have in your mind your own course, especially if you have taught this more than once. Some of us taught the same course 3 or 4 times. So you will have this cumulative knowledge and experience to decide which course, which CLO applies, which does not. For example, S1. Now, this has to do with skills, application, real application, not the background or the knowledge or understanding. So students will be able to, again, this is the program, and I want to generate for my course, the course specification, the course learning outcomes. Perform practical tasks and activities in a variety of settings that demonstrate profound understanding of grammatical structure. This is not needed. Translation skills, literary criticism, and English language skills. Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Now, speaking is a skill, but how is it related to phonology? Because speaking, especially when your students are applying the different, for example, accents. If you are going to teach them assimilation, elision, if you're going to teach them a variety of different accents, Cockney accents, for example, they demonstrate profound understanding of language skill, which is different accents. if your students are able to differentiate between the rhotic, for example, languages, differentiating between better and better, okay, if your students can do that, this means that they can show or demonstrate knowledge of profound knowledge, actually deep knowledge of language skills, okay? So that's why we have S. Notice that this is P, which means that it is practiced. What do we mean by practiced? It means that this skill has been introduced, in another course, in a previous course, which is, of course, phonetics, okay? And why is it important to decide on the P, I, or M? Because it will help you later when you do your course report, which is something we maybe discuss later. It will help you decide whether the target proficiency is, for example, 70%, 80%, or maybe 75%. So if the skill is introduced, your expectation will be within 70, which is the least thing, okay? If it is practiced, it will be something between 75% or of the students, of course, of the overall students, up to 80% of the students should get the target grade for this skill, okay? But this is not our discussion now. Now, so this one applies. Now, what about S2? Why doesn't it apply to this course? I'm preparing the course specification for. S2 states that students will be able to apply critical thinking and problem-solving skills both independently and in team environment to make decisions on a multiplicity of contexts. This does not apply in phonology. Okay, again, because it is a more theoretical course. S3 utilize various information and communication technology, IC. Okay, now this is there. Why? Because you remember that 30% of my mode of instruction is e-learning. So it is something that is by default. If any part of your mode of instruction has to do with e-learning, digital learning, distance learning, this should be included in your course specification, course CLOs, okay? So if your students are going in any way use information and communication technology, ICT, this learning outcomes, PLO, should appear in your CLO, okay? Now, let's go to the last part, which has to do with value. Values are things that are not measured in tests. It's measured in using rubrics, for example, if you are evaluating your student's speech. It depends on the course you are teaching. Or if there are activities in which pair work, group work, collaborative learning is applied, you can measure some of these values. So there are no tests to measure values. It's not measured through lectures, for example, or discussion. It's measured with more with activities and throughout the course. So demonstrate leadership role and sense of accountability. This is V2, which says in the program, in the PLO, demonstrate positive coexistence, of course, with colleagues and others, or with society on a larger scale, and build rapport with others. Okay, so this is the PLO, what that generates the my last CLO. Okay, now this is the shape of the overall, the final shape of my course learning outcomes. Again, you can use more than one PLO, but please make sure it's not more than 2. Otherwise, you will face a problem when you finalize your course report. Okay, I think someone is talking. Yes, تفضل. Definitely. Okay, definitely. Okay, so we'll take say We'll meet again at 7:30. Is that fine with everyone? Okay. 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 Then we'll come again at 7:30, inshallah. Okay. I'll just keep the meeting on, and I'll take a break also and come back.